What's up, guys? Ninja on a ninja. And Ninja on a ninja. And for the record, if just in case you don't know me, I am the smartest man on the world. I believe I'm the smartest man in the world. There is a difference between intelligence and education, by the way, and I openly accept any challengers to debate, or not debate, but to discuss my statement, I guess. But um, hmm, okay, that's weird. But anyways, before I played the video, well, actually, let me explain. So I went back because I watched ahead. And I went back to when you first started this because I want you to see this and I want to explain it to you. And it's nowhere near as complicated as you're making it sound. Like, it's not transversing this or that or discussing this and that. Like, basically, the way I can explain it was there was basically how can I explain it? Like, basically a meathead or a jock or like a like someone physical, an athlete, right, or a sports athlete, had to pick a gun or had a gun, and I asked him to, like, okay, explain what you do. He's like, I just aim, correct my aim, and fire. Boom, right? And then there's a scientist, right, or the nerd, or the whatever, and he does the same thing. But the way he explains it is, he's like, well, what I do is I go down, or I go right on the up, on the x-axis or the y-axis, and this or that, blah blah, all using scientific terms, but basically they're both saying the same thing, right? And so I watched this, and I was listening to you, like, I don't know why you're, cause like I consider myself a jock, or not a jock, but like a jack of trades, right? I don't master anything, but I don't falter at anything either. So I'm literally the jack of all trades, as in I actually know how to play with dolls. So I'm pretty good at it. But anyways, it's anyways. So listen, check it. Basically, water. Okay, water. Remember, this is just like water. That's all I'm gonna say. Now, if you watch this, it handles exactly like water. So let's go ahead.
Get clearer. I really love this footage, and it shows that no, the battery has no idea how much current should flow when you plug it in. The
Right.
battery is connected, a whole bunch of current flows down the wire. When it
Mm-hmm.
hits the Y, the current gets split. But also,
When it hits the Y, the current gets split. I don't know what that means. All I know is once it the Y, as in like it's a Y of the Y, a shape of the wire, like a Y. It's the Y shape of the wire, is my guess. So when it splits, right? But you're like there's a thing happening, but you're giving it a science like explanation when it's just splitting. It's all it's doing. Of course, a split because the wire is split. It's not going and hitting it because there's two. It decides, oh, what am I doing? There's two paths here. There's one path and two paths. So because I don't know which path I want to go down yet, I'm going to go down one path and two paths at the same time. Right? That sounds happening. Right? It's literally it's going. There's two paths and it just goes down the paths. That's it. Okay.
something looks like it reflects back towards the battery.
Yeah. Something looks like it reflects towards the battery. Yeah, of course, it's called the split, right? Like, again, the two, like, when the water splits in the middle, if you look, the water gets hit by it, right? Basically, and it would go all the way up but the water gets pushed down, though the impact probably will travel upwards. So I don't know if you see it in water the same way, but you see. Anyways,
That's kind of weird. And now we have a pulse.
so notice how it's even.
Actually, two identical pulses
You know how it's even, and you're kind of pointing it out too.
traveling down both R wires.
And not only that,
Remember, this wire has the ends disconnected, and this wire has the ends soldered together. When the two
I had hoped to God that, like, we're not that stupid. We don't need you to explain it that much. Like, you're not that much smarter than everybody, dude. Calm down. But what I want to say
identical
is you look and all of the ways are even, right? And the reason why is because it's like, as far as the battery goes, all it knows is that's how much it could send, how much it split, and how much it went down and can send, and so it went back. And it's like, this is as much as you can, blah blah, right? This is it. This is it. Unless there is something else put on the line that's um, like stop sending here. You'll see. You'll see.
pulses reach the end of their respective.
See, stop sending here, and so it builds up. Whereas over here, it's like keep sending here, and the reason why it's keep sending here is because that current is actually being taken and used to somewhere else. Whereas it's just like a water. It's just like it's going to the end of the cave, and it's hitting the end. It's piling up, basically. And that's what it's doing. Whereas this one, it's actually exiting and going down the other wire. That's what's happening. And so, as you said, they were tripped or whatever. They're connected. So that wave is going and connected and actually going out of the wire, going through it, and where it's going. I don't know what the fuck you have. Like you can have it whatever. But if you look,
Wires.
it's hitting the end, right?
The one that meets the disconnected circuit slams into a wall.
And you notice it stays up. Why is that? Because the battery is still shooting its max, basically, or it's still shooting its load. And you see this is still down. You know why? It's because it's still being drained the whole time. It's still being drained.
All of that current sloshes back and piles up.
So pile, yeah. Did you? What the hell? Did you reset it?
Into a wall. All of that current sloshes back and piles.
Okay. So you notice it's all super tall. I'm using my finger like you can see that. God damn, I just realized it. But you notice it's all super tall, right? It's because that current went here and it went nowhere. It's still there. That charge is still there, right? But meanwhile, this charge isn't. What happened? This charge is exiting through the two connected wires, right?
Piles up. The other pulse gets shorted out, drops to zero, and also sends that information back towards the battery. If I speed up here, we see over a few reflections.
Yeah, the reason why it's bouncing.
Battery. If I speed up here, we see over
I kind of made me sad the fact that you said if you speed it up. No, it's important to see these reflections because it's like you have to watch from the point.
also sends that information back towards the battery. If I speed up here, we
So it's going,
see over
it goes. It's about to go.
a few
So if you, God damn it, the change in speed fucks everything off.
information back towards the battery.
So that is like sending more. It's going through the.
If I speed up,
Let's actually go
drops
back.
to zero, and also back and piles up. The other pulse
Okay,
gets shorted out.
I'm looking at this. So this,
Also sends
it's what's called sending new power, basically. Basically, it's, a new wave, if you will, and it's because of this. And it's because electricity is like a light, if you will. I actually think that based on this technically speaking, like I'm curious, like I'm just curious right now. Um, what like if connecting a dead wire would increase the like if you plug into a flashlight, right? Because I'm thinking that hmm, you increase the flow basically. Okay, anyways, I'm getting my head of myself. So because again, I keep pointing, because stop it, Ben. Because this is blocked, that this is piling up and this is piling up and this is going down basically because this hasn't done what's it called that it's still on its way basically. So it's still on its way. The amount of feed it's going down because that's how much it's sent initially and drained, blah blah.
sends that information back to
And you notice how it's kind of like equal, like the equilibrium, like it's
we see over a few reflections,
and it just
the
bounces.
battery realizes it tried to send way too much power the first time, and slowly the whole circuit
It's like water, dude.
settles down. Current, the actual flow of electrons, ends up following this slope as the high
It's
voltage
like water. If you look at it, the way you did it, it's hard to explain it because it goes too fast, and I have to hear. I don't know. Maybe I could. Maybe I could. So it goes, and the reflect, and then it goes back. It's being drained, being drained, being drained, but it's still the power from the battery.
way too much
You know,
power the first time, and slowly
and
the
so
whole circuit settles down. Current, the actual flow of electrons, ends up the battery realizes it tried to send way too much power the first time, and slowly the whole circuit settles down. Current, the actual flow of electrons, ends up following this slope.
so right here is where I kind of stopped it because that's kind of what would happen if you were like filling like a tub or something, if you will. Because what's called the source of the water is always going to be strongest because as the source of the water, there's a drain on this side, but that's as much power. Like the differential, by the way, or I should say rather, um, it's gonna be what it is because that's the drain rate versus the power rate basically. So if the power rate was equal to the drain rate, maybe they'd be the same. I'm not exactly too sure what's going on there, what the numbers are. I don't know enough. I know enough to talk about it. I don't know if to be master about it. But this is why I like. This is why I like what I do because I'll always be interested because I'm always like what, or I always get curious and find something you might have overlooked because you're too far down and you're too, far up your own ass to realize it. So, but and also another thing too is while I'm seeing this, I'm seeing it through what's called. You're looking at it from physics. I'm looking at it through scientific, through arts and crafts, through like through all kinds of different means. But anyways, it's like water.
As the high
It
voltage
balances,
battery
right?
drops to nothing at the short,
And it's not going up. It's not going down.
disconnected
That's what it's gonna be.
wire where nothing should be happening, there isn't a slope. No voltage to make electrons move. Until the waves actually get to the ends of the wire, they look identical because these waves of current don't know what is at the end of their respective branches of the circuit. Once they realize what's at the end of their circuit, they transmit that.
It has nothing to do with the what's it called the thing realizing oh this is how much I gotta send. It's just sending it, and that's just how much it works. You understand? Like that's why at the very beginning I told you, like, you tell a meathead or a jock or an athlete aim the gun. He tells you all he did is aim the gun. You know, he moved it, left it up, and fired the gun. Whereas I asked a scientist, and he's like, I moved it 3 degrees to the left, and then up to 4 degrees, on the x-axis or the y-axis, and because the sun is true, and because algebra, and because Uranus is very present on the the astronomy page. I was trying to think of the astronomy page. Anyways, but yeah, so you get the idea. You're saying the same thing. You're going a different, using different words or different examples according to your field, right? And again, me being a jack of trades, I don't really have a field other than the one where it mostly belongs. It's not yours, and it's not yours. It's kind of like it's this person's. You know what I mean?
that information back to the because these waves of current don't know what is at the end of their respective branches of the circuit. Once they realize what's at the end of their circuit, they transmit that information back to the battery.
No,
This branch says, whoa, I need a bit less current this way. It
no,
looks like a wall. And this
no,
one says, hey, I need more current. Make this hill a little bit steeper.
no. There's nothing saying that. That's just what it is. Like when like it's just natural. Like I just naturally do this. Whereas there's some people that need to think, okay, what's called the wind's blowing this way. So if I go over and then go up, it's just a way of thinking. But it's important to understand what's actually happening, basically. And it's not saying, oh, it's not saying,
And this one says, hey, I need more current. Make
it's not actually saying that. It's just, it's sending, it's taking more than it's sending, so keep sending. It's gonna keep going, because it's like water. It's gonna do that. It's water. It's natural, so to speak, right? That's why I like natural, because it's just normal. It's just how things work. Instead of like arranging it, you should feel this way because we created it and we made it to where it's gonna make you itch, and also it's gonna also stop the itching. And so because that's gonna create the, what's it called, the satisfaction of you sating that itch, so therefore you should find enjoyment. And it's like, or you can just make a pill that makes you feel good. You know what I'm saying? Um, or that's probably a shit example. I don't think that works. But you get the idea, hopefully.
it less current this way. It looks like a wall. And this
There's no, they should less current. It's just, there's a wall, so I'm gonna send less. Because guess what? I'm trying to put, and it won't. It won't. It's not a decision being made. It just won't go through, so fuck it. And send it somewhere else. And guess what? This site's not going down. You know why? Because it's still trying to push it. It's not going through. So it's not saying send less. It's just saying it's not working, and it's just doing. It's not thinking. It's just doing. And that's the difference between like science and nature, I guess, that I hate.
one says, hey, I need more current. Make this
No,
hill a little bit steeper.
no,
These signals meet each other and eventually get back to the battery. There's a negotiation.
no,
It
not.
requires a lot of back and forth communication. In
No.
this case, the whole
That's what made me want to make this recording. Is because, no, it doesn't. What makes you think, like, who gives a fuck? Like, if I was that electricity, I'm sending it down. I don't give a fuck how much you need or how much you can take or this and that. I don't give a shit. I'm just sending. That's it. I'm just sending. Right? This is natural. This is why wires have certain strengths and weaknesses. This is why certain things have strengths and weaknesses. Where's my phone? Oh. This is why there's resistances, why there's parts and pieces, why there's this and that. I'm being loud. But yeah, certain things, certain parts and pieces. What's it called? I don't remember where I was at. The
hill a little
text.
bit steeper. When both these signals meet each other and eventually get back to the battery, there's a negotiation,
No,
and it requires a lot of back and forth
there's
communication.
there's no
In this case, the
talking.
whole circuit took about 4,000 nanoseconds to stabilize.
There's no
That's like
talking though. And if there was talking, it would have taken that long to stabilize because it's nature and natural, and not doing the scientific method, I guess you could say, or the mathematical method, or the human approach of communication, because it's not saying, "Hey Charlie, send less because blah," right? It's not doing that. It has to figure it out on its own by just doing its thing. Basically, it's pushing, and it's like, oh, some came back, and I don't know.
like 8 round trips. I also
It's
want to
still
point out
pushing. Look, the battery pushes the matter. Like,
there's a lot of back and forth communication. In this case, the whole circuit took about 4,000 nanoseconds to stabilize. That's like 8 round trips. I also want to point out that
hmm
these wires can't.
and there's probably mechanics involved that made the battery work the way it does. That is probably a mechanical feature built by the makers of the people that made wires and made batteries, so there's no boom, right? They probably made batteries to be the way that they are, so that they actually have some, like they naturally push, but they push only so much, um, basically, and that might be because you're using a battery that's way too much or sends too much to into something that doesn't. You know what I'm saying? So like it might even be just a scenario that should not be a scenario, basically, and just maybe you have the wrong tools for the job at hand. And the fact is, you should have it be flat out all the way across, and there should be, like, the only reason why we're seeing that drain is because the wire, hmm, because the wire is so big, and then we're seeing the input is because the battery is so big, basically. And maybe it's just that they made it to there's no boom because of the mechanical approach. But this actually kind of makes me curious, and it makes me curious. Not so much it makes me want to find out. I do want to find out, but it makes me curious to the point where I'd make you go find out for me. Basically, and what I mean is that wire that you're using, you use a smaller wire or a bigger wire. And for the battery and switch or whatever, like, play with different sizes and different calibers or whatever, and see if there's a bang or a meltdown. I know that what's his name? Uh, Boom, Electro Boom. I think Electro Boom. Yeah. I think his name's Electro Boom. I should watch him. I haven't watched him lately. He's getting old. He's fake. He's too fake. He needs to stop faking. Anyways. Um, Basically, cause like when he messes with wires and contraptions, he tends to encounter booms, like explosions, and they tend to be explosions that he knows it's gonna explode. He knows the effect is gonna be what happens because he's a professional. But that's what I mean by he fakes it, basically, and it's not real and it's bullshit and it gets old because of that. For me, anyways. And for a kid, like, it's funny, or some dumbass who doesn't know better. But when you're old enough to know that he knows, and anyways, the point is there are things out there. It makes me wonder. Maybe you're just using a scenario that it's like that because the two, like, they work together very well, and that's why they're handling the way that they are. And we're seeing what we see because that's natural, right? And yeah, based off of A plus B, we should see what we're seeing because that's just how they work. It's like putting parts into something and getting the outcome we expect, right? We put A and B, and then we know Cyan's gonna come out. We push the button, and Cyan comes out, and we're like, of course, we expected that, you know.
can't talk to each other through this gap. I just wanted to make it easy to compare the waves by putting them side by side. So for those of you keeping score at home, the answer is C. It takes much longer than one round trip for electricity for the current to stabilize and for the circuit to obey Ohm's law in DC. But that leaves us
I
with
don't know
a few
what
more
Ohm's
questions,
law
like
is.
what are these waves that are traveling through this circuit? And how does the battery and switch assembly here decide how much current should initially flow in the wire if it's just guessing and it doesn't know how much current should flow to either end? To answer those questions, I have a similar but simpler circuit set up here. Instead of a big branching circuit with lots and lots of wire, this is just a straight shot. So I have the same very fast.
So I just want to say, this is as of now. Like, you guys stop watching. That's fine. I just want to say, as of now, I don't know what the fuck. I'm seeing it for the first time. You're seeing me see it for the first time. So it's just natural. I felt like including this because maybe it helped you. I don't know.
Electronic switch that plugs the battery into the wire, and then I have 23 meters of my custom twisted pair, and at the end, two wires that are dangling free so that I can attach whatever resistor I want as a load on the end of this circuit. That basically means that we have a power supply and we have a load that are separated by hundreds of nanoseconds of delay time. It's
But what I want to say is it's a controlled environment with things that are designed to act a certain way. So like it's kind of like what you're doing is no different than kids back in the day with their creepy crawlers, like where it's just like you get the mix and the mix you put together, and you stir it up, you put it in the oven, and you cook it, and you warm it up, and there's a light bulb, there's an engine, and you actually cook it and you make it like, oh my god, I have alchemy, and I was messing with, chemistry, um, and also I was doing cooking as well, whatever the fuck. But it was made for kids back in the day, which they'd never sell two kids today. Two kids, they would never sell two kids. They would never sell it to kids today. And the reason why is because kids today are fucking idiots, and they probably blow up the
really
world.
easy to go in here and say, I know the resistance of the wire, I know the resistance of the load, I know the resistance that's built into the power supply.
Right.
You can calculate how much current,
Right.
literally how many electrons per second are going to
Right.
be chugging their way through this wire.
Right.
But as we
But
just saw, the correct number of electrons don't flow the first time you hit the switch. They sort of have to bounce around and figure it out. For the first test, I'm just going to short out. I've soldered.
it's not that it has to figure it out. It actually has. It's kind of like I'm trying to think of the perfect example. You have to wait for it to calm down before you can enjoy it or drink it. Like when you first mix something, it's like someone gives you the ingredients for cookies, and then it'd be like what you just said right now, and how you're shocked, like, oh my god, it takes it so long for it to actually you cover, like, what did you say exactly?
Bounce around and figure it out. For the first test, the first time you hit the switch, they sort of have to bounce around and figure it out. For the first test,
So what you're saying is I get the ingredients, and then when I just eat the ingredients, it doesn't taste like a cookie. And that's because you're not mixing them and cooking them, letting them grow, letting them spread, letting them soak, and absorbing the moisture. Whatever it is that comes from a cookie, you're not allowing that process to happen, basically. So of course it's not going to work. You have to wait till that process happens, basically. Now that the process is complete, once the wires, balance out And once all the mechanics behind the engine, you only start a car, you had to warm it up. Basically, once it was warmed up, of course it was natural, of course it fired, of course it worked. Basically, of course it said what it's gonna do, because that's how they measured it, right? They didn't tell you like, oh, when you first start, it's gonna show this, and it's gonna go down and down and down and down until now. It's just that's it. They just tell you like when you plug in, it's just gonna drain at a 500 rate, and you plug in, it drains at 1,000. There it goes 1,000, the two, and then five, then nine, and eight, and four, whatever, and then to five, right?
I'm just going to short out the ends. I've soldered these two wires together. So this big long chain is terminated in a 0 ohm resistor. I spent what ended up being quite a while writing a script that brings in these voltage traces and produces an exaggerated view of how the electrons actually move in the wire. So I want to be very clear, this top plot is real data that I actually collected. This is 20 individual oscilloscope traces that are all being played back at the same time. And this is a heavily exaggerated animation of the electron's motion based on that data. And then
Water.
this final plot is a realistic, albeit extremely noisy graph of electron drift velocity along the wire's length that we'll talk about in a minute, but
Like
it's
water.
also based on the raw data. For now, let's cover most of this up. The fundamental point in here is the speed of electricity and the speed of the electrons.
Like
those
water.
are not the same thing. If we look at this wave traveling down the wire, we see that it travels this 23 meters in about 120 nanoseconds, which means it's traveling at almost 200,000 kilometers per second, which is like 2/3 the speed of light. That is absurdly fast. However, if we look at these electrons that have started moving, they go a whole lot slower. In the graphic, the individual electrons are moving about 10 times slower than the wave. And that right there is the exaggeration, because in reality, the electrons in this wire are traveling about 10 trillion times slower than the wave. But that doesn't make for a very understandable graphic. But if they were drawn out accurately, you'd never be able to see that they were scrunched in some places and more spread out in other places, because the spacing just doesn't change very much. That said, it is the scrunching and spreading out of electrons in different parts of wires that causes electrons to do what they do and flow through wires. If we look at the wires, these are the two wires of the twisted pair, although the twist really doesn't matter. When we flip the switch and this wave travels down the wire, we see that the electrons are pulled from one wire and shoved into the other. But at the end, the electrons haven't started moving yet. Any given point on this trace at the top is the voltage, or potential difference, between the wires of the twisted pair below. When this voltage goes up here, but is still 0 over here, we're saying that in this region, there are more electrons in the wire than this wire. But at the far end, there are just as many electrons in both wires. Of course, this is about to change. As this wave reaches the end of the wire, all these electrons start moving. So in answer to our first question, what are these waves? These waves are waves of motion and waves of electron bunching and scrunching. At one instant, if there are electrons moving to the right in this part of the wire and not moving in this other part of the wire, the only way that can be happening is if the electrons in between those two regions in this part of the wire are actually getting closer together. And if we play this footage forwards, that's exactly what we see. It's a common argument in my comment section that these waves of electricity are just the electric field and that the electrons don't really move. But if that were the case, this zigzag layout wouldn't work. The electric field would cover the whole panel faster than I'd be able to measure it. These phenomena only make sense if electrons are actually scooching down the wire and bunching up, even if ever so slightly. That's why electricity follows wires and cables. It can only go where the electrons can scooch forwards. I originally had this circuit set up where the wires at the end were shorted together, so it was basically like a 0 ohm resistor. But now, I've cut them apart. So there's an infinity ohm resistor right here,
Why?
where the two wires are just, hanging free. So what do you think is going to happen in this case? There's no way for electrons to flow.
I don't know why you had to like to actually show yourself cutting it and smile at the camera like a schoolgirl. Like, you got good wire, we got soldered, we.
Down the black wire all the way down to the end, somehow magically jump this gap and flow back along the red wire. But we know that when we flip this switch, we're going to have current. Electrons are going to start moving in this part of the wire the moment we flick this switch. So what's that going to look like when it gets to the end? It's going to look like this. After we flip the switch, we get the exact same step, the same wave of electricity at about 2.25 volts of potential, and about 15 milliamps of current are flowing in that part of the wire. But when that wave gets to the end, it can't go anywhere. Basically, these electrons slam into the end of the wire and pile up. Now, we have a big steep slope of voltage in the other direction. If the first slope accelerated electrons towards the load, this reverse slope
Again, just like water.
decelerates the electrons. And awesomely, the magnitudes match. So all the electrons start moving, then the reflected wave...
Remember, I did the hand thing again. Looking at this bottom picture here, okay? Looking at this heavily exaggerated calculation of electron motion. You have to understand there could be 10 electrons on top of each other, and 2 or 500 or 73 or whatever. That's why we're seeing what we're seeing, where it's going from, or no, it goes up, and then for some reason, oh look, there's nowhere, and because they're giving, and because there's room to pile, it goes down. And for some reason, if there was too much electricity, I think like if you had a smaller wire, for example, or a bigger battery, this is where you would get the explosion from because there's too much, and then pap, and that's where the wire blows up. That's what I was asking you before. The problem is you're in a safe environment basically, and I originally liked Electro Boom because he wasn't in a safe environment, but then he started to fake it, so he was safe and pretended to be unsafe. But you don't really learn anything. Like you teach kids, sure, right? And that's what he does. But as I said, I stopped watching it. I didn't say everyone, right? I stopped watching him because I don't want to learn that shit. And it's like a learning that there's no Santa Claus, right? So it's just like, oh, and then he keeps on pretending to be Santa Claus. And I'm like, this is dumb, right? It's the same thing. Electricity is just like water.
Start moving, then the reflected wave perfectly cancels them out, and they all stop moving. Of course,
They don't. They stop because they maximize, and the battery you have stops pushing, basically, or it stops generating. You gotta understand the only reason why they do that is because the battery has some kind of technology or some kind of reasoning for what it does. But and the wire being big enough, and that's why it does what it does. And the reason why it doesn't go anywhere is because maybe the electricity. I think they have. It says like 5 volts on it, so the highest it can push is 5 volts. Probably that's why. All right, like it can go uh, endlessly lower, or probably it's a certain amount lower before it blows up. Because if this wire can only take 2 volts, and this battery can make up to 5 volts, then the wire is gonna blow up. But if the wire can take 10 volts, and the wire and this battery can push 5, that's going to equate because that can only push out 5. You know what I'm saying?
It does bounce back and forth a bit more, but after all that, we end up with 2 wires full of unmoving electrons.
Right.
The fact that at the end of this animation, this extremely data-driven animation, all of the electrons stop moving, like, makes me so happy. The fact that the wave going one way is perfectly canceled by the wave going the other way when it hits the end of this is so cool.
Why? It's just like water. What happens when you put water into a cup? it fills up, right? What happens when the thing that you're using to fill the bottle, for example, is programmed to turn off or to only push till there's about 20 ounces in there and only to keep up to a certain point. Like, for example, the bottle itself can hold like 20 ounces, but it can survive 20 pounds, and the machine that we have only pushes 10. So, like, if there's a resistance of 10 pounds of water that it senses, it'll stop, right? So it won't blow up. You get happy by that too. You sound like somebody who's like a child. I know, look, electro boom, it exploded. He's faking it. He knew. Same thing here.
Can be measured accurately enough to make an animation like this with an oscilloscope that's only a few $100. I was so excited when I saw this animation for the first time. But both wires
Like, congratulations for like being ignorant and welcome to the enlightenment. I guess this is the best way I can explain that. Continue on your journey and don't give up, my friend. But like,
there's a voltage difference between them. If you want to get technical, we're now seeing the wire's capacitance measured in charge per volt. Physically, how many charged electrons we need to add to a wire to change its voltage. This also, in a roundabout way, answers our second question. In both cases, the exact same wave left from the battery because the circuit at this end didn't yet know what was at this end.
it's again, as that not knowing what that is has nothing to do with it. That is built to, and when I first started, I was talking as nature uh, pushing from we don't have a number, so it can be endlessly positive. We don't know, or it can be exactly what we're looking for. We don't know because it's nature and it can be anything. You can find anything in nature, right? But that's what I was talking about before. Now I might change it because now I'm a little more familiarized in your method and what we're talking about here. So I can tell you that your supply is a certain amount and your load is a certain amount. So your supply will supply your load as much as your supply can carry. And that's it. There's no, hey, how much can you carry? Okay, got it. All right, ship it. Go ahead. No, it's too much. Stop. There's none of that. It's just doing things.
Was largely controlled by the capacitance of the wire. How many electrons can be crammed into this wire when you apply a certain voltage?
That's again that they know like this wire is made to five um 5 volts, or this wire is 10 volts, or this is 50 volts, and blah blah blah.
To be linguistic about it, the wire's capacity to hold extra electrons.
It's like water, dude.
This value is very high for instances like this, where you have nearby wires wrapped in insulation, and extremely low for wires that are far apart with nothing in between. So now let's go back to the Y-shaped circuit, and hopefully you'll see all these effects present in a much more complicated model. So now we understand this first bit. When we send a pulse of voltage down the wire, at the ends of the branches,
just like
the
water.
electrons aren't moving yet. But everywhere this wave has been, electrons have started moving. And at the edge of the wave, the electrons are either clumping up or spreading out. Now, when this pulse hits the fork, three things happen. Part of the wave reflects back, part of the wave continues into the connected branch, and part of the wave continues into the disconnected branch.
Okay.
These waves continue until they hit their respective loads. A dead short or 0 ohm resistor, and an open circuit or infinity ohm resistor. Just like in the single cable test, we see the electrons that hit the open circuit pile up and reflect back, stopping all motion. And
No, not reflecting back. It's just building up. Because more are still coming. It's filling up. That's all it's doing. It's not going back because then go back down. That's a reflect. Going back down would mean it's going back. No, it's just more is coming. That's it. Just more is coming. Once it goes down, then it's going back.
reflects back low. actually accelerating the electrons in the wire further.
See,
This
look, it's just
branching circuit
going.
is a dramatically more
And look at, see, now it's starting to go down. That's a good question. Why is it going down? Because I would say the jaw.
system than the single cable terminated in a resistor. But hopefully you can see the same patterns in both. We can continue tracing individual.
See, like the adjustment, like that's actually a good question. Cause like it's going backwards. Why is it going backwards?
But hopefully you can see this.
So the flow, like, cause to flow in, right? That's fine, but to flow out,
Same patterns
well,
system than the single cable terminated in a resistor. But hopefully you can see
okay.
the same patterns in both. We can continue.
Oh,
This
never
branching
mind.
circuit is a dramatically more complicated system
So
than the single cable terminated in a resistor. But
that's weird. That's weird
is a dramatic.
because it goes down from the end like this, like this, right? But then at some point, it goes down and then it goes like this. Watch it.
More complicated
One way,
system than the single cable terminated
and then now it's the other way.
But hopefully
But the other way is more the whole thing is going.
you can see the same patterns in.
So I think really it's just a problem with the test. Basically, is what I would say. The equipment, basically. We're seeing what we're seeing because the equipment we have to test it is failing. It's not doing what it should be doing. That's my guess.
We can continue tracing individual reflections
Like,
and waves
we're not seeing how we should.
and interactions between electrons in all of these wires and
And even you can say understanding because the battery is pumping
carefully predicting what will happen next.
the same amount.
Or we can just fast forward to the end and see that all of this hardly.
Yeah. See, if you look, it goes. I'm pointing again. If you look, it goes to here, and that's where this is equal, right? But this is draining still. So this is a line, right? This is a line. This is it. At this point, it's just this charge there. I would say it's just charge from the battery. That's no longer in the battery. It's in the wires, waiting to be used by this or drained by this. Because this is being drained at this rate, and that rate alone. So that's why, because it's like water filled up, and it's not going to go any higher or any lower because that's where it balanced out.
Matters because after a few hundred nanoseconds, everything settles out and we get exactly what we expect.
Yeah. So, but this is the same, right? It goes down and boom, and then equals out, and it's just holding it. And but in reality, it's all going here, and actuality, it's again the finger. In actuality, it's all going here and drained to the right, to the left, right? Because you're coming from this way, going this way. This way is forward. The left is forward, and so that would mean left is the drain, and right is the not. It may be coming from the right as well, but it's being restocked by the main. So either way, it's being drained to the left. So yeah, I fucking God, I'm so smart, dude. Holy shit.
A descending gradient from power supply
Shit.
to load where the DC version of Ohm's law is satisfied for all locations. This is the same net
I
result
don't know what Ohm's law is.
I measured in the electricity maze video, but at that scale, I wasn't able to record it fast enough to show you how it got that way. Hopefully now, it makes a little more sense, and you can imagine these waves sort of percolating.
Um, I would imagine.
Through every possible way to solve that maze at once before the circuit settled. Through every possible way to solve that maze at once before the circuit settled into that result.
Like water.
At the start, I mentioned the water channel model was going to make a comeback, and I want to show you what parts of the water channel model are applicable and where you have to be careful.
And then somewhere we got one down there. Is it only 3 leaks? It's pretty great.
I recreated this circuit as best I could with acrylic sheet water channels and used large basins of water as a supply and a load. So effectively, we have 2 capacitors connected to ground, a switch, and an extra bit of wire. So check out these shots side by side. In both cases, the wave leaves from the supply, travels down the first leg, splits at the branch, sloshes up at the dead end, and sloshes down at the open end.
Right, but the closed end stays around
the fact that
full.
This water channel model is able to so accurately depict the dynamics of electricity, a completely different system, and one that operates on timescales that are orders of magnitude faster than water.
What are you talking about?
It's just really amazing to me.
You're an idiot in that case.
But it's not perfect. Weirdly, in the water version, the back reflections aren't as pronounced. When the signals hit the loads at the end, we absolutely see one wave pile up and the other drop low. But in general, the dynamics of water are a little more direct, and the signals returning to the power supply aren't as obvious. One reason for this may be that the parameters of the circuits don't match. If I repeat the electricity...
No, the reason why is because you don't have the battery you're using is an open socket. It's allowing a full throttle water source into an open thing that's allowing a full throttle water source. The only thing that's limiting it is the compartments that it's passing through, which again is unlimited, but it's limited by the space. So it's only taking in as much as it can fit, basically, and that's it. But with the electric, basically, it's something I think you're overlooking because you're a student, not a teacher, and this is why teachers should teach and students should shut the fuck up, basically, is because that battery is made to only shoot, like 10 volts of power or 5 or 50, and then the wire is only measured to allow 20 volts to pass through, or 10 or 5 or 1, right? So it'd be like having a big thing for water and having a big thing for the water to go through and being like, why is it acting different? It's because you're not being like just here. It's like you don't understand what you're looking at. And this is why I do and call people out. And yeah, you can people can hate me. Oh, you're a faggot. How dare you say our guy is wrong? How dare you? Go ahead. It's not, like I said, it's not my problem that your hero, the guy that you're watching, is deciding to be a teacher and is amazed by shit that his teacher is like, yeah, so what? It gets common sense, right? Like, it's not my fault he didn't know, right? But yet, we're all supposed to be surprised by this? Like, no, we're not stupid. This is why you should have shut up. It's cool that you're experimenting and learning, but you gotta be careful because people watch you and they learn from you. You should say before the video starts, I'm not a professional, I'm not an expert, I'm learning. So when people watch you, they know to take it with a grain of salt. Basically, but when you walk in and you say, "Oh, I know what I'm talking about," or "This is great," and the kids think this is what science is all about, and turns out, oh, this is like chapter two. We're at chapter 317. That's chapter two. Like, come on, man. Like, anyways.
are a little more direct, and the signals returning to the power supply aren't as obvious. One reason for this may be that the parameters of the circuits don't match. If I repeat the electricity experiment with higher resistance wire, not impedance, but resistance, we get a slightly closer analog, where the reflections of electricity are significantly diminished. But while water in a narrow channel and electrons in a wire do show a lot of similarities, like seriously, I could keep listing them for 40 minutes, inertia is something that's really finicky. If you look at this model from above, you can see that it's not symmetrical, and neither is it straight. The way that water maintains inertia around corners is extremely different from electrons, which pick up an effective inertia while drifting by creating a magnetic field around the wire. This divot, for example, would never appear in electron flow in a wire. And at the end, I wasn't able to create a perfect low voltage supply to pull the signal down, but this is something that's really easy in wires. I always imagine circuits, even
Right.
dynamic ones with waves, like
So, I said all of what he said, but a different way. But I said that way before he said that. Basically, because he probably realized it after the experiment, and someone made him see it or something, and he realized himself. I don't know.
water flowing through these channels. But sometimes the mental image with the idealized water flowing down an idealized water trough is a better analog to electricity than building one in real life and filming it in real life. However,
No.
even this real one, with all of its imperfections, is an excellent qualitative model that I think provides a lot of intuition for an otherwise very difficult topic. Of course, what actually happens in my head is that when this doesn't match, I start thinking of a more complicated electronic circuit that would match this better. Like this milk jug at the end is basically a capacitor, and the fact that I've cut it off makes it a voltage regulator, and it's a lot better than basically what I had before was like a voltage sensitive resistor where I just ended it. Anyway, I hope that you learned something about electricity watching this video. I certainly learned a lot about electricity making this video and had a lot
Right.
of fun trying to figure out how to film electricity at a ridiculous speed and making the equivalent water model to think
Maybe
about.
say that stuff at the beginning.
I feel like I'm completely incapable of writing a short script anymore. There was an awful lot that got cut from this video, especially a more mathematical view of this circuit and how you can actually calculate the strengths of these waves, and a lot more with the single cable that was terminated with various resistors. So that all ended up becoming another video. You should head over to AlphaPhoenix 2, where I have the Q&A from my previous mainline video posted, along with another few short videos that I think you'll enjoy.
No.
Thanks for watching. See you next time.
No. I am not going there, and no, I would not encourage my viewers to go there either, because you have a second channel. That means that exists for money. All you exist for is money. Oh shit. And I don't like that.
Quick editor's note. The
I
video
don't
you're about to watch is based on info from these 3 videos.
don't care. But yeah, the point is you have another channel, and it's basically algorithm and bullshit, and all that means to me is you're doing what you're doing for money, and basically I don't like that. I don't like people who do things just for money, or a way to get attention, or a way to get noticed, or whatever. Like if someone wants to donate $1,000 to me, sure, but understand I'm not doing shit for you, so fuck off with that shit. But that's basically it. I refuse to sell out or bow down to anybody. Moderators, not moderators, but what do they call it? Uh, people that want to sponsor me, basically, like, I understand I'm gonna say the word fuck, I'm gonna say the word nigger. I don't care. Keep your money, dude. I'll be worth more than you ever will be. Because I'm the smartest man in the world, so fuck off. But, anyways, be well, be happy, be safe, be strong, and just know that I love you. And yeah, take care, peace. Uh, what is it? God loves you. The Quran loves you. Everything in the Quran's good. Stay away from the bad shit. Um, do what you do. Keep it away from me. Abortion is not, uh, what's it called? A birth control. Like it should be. It's just you got raped. You know, that's what it's there for. But if you're going to be having sex and you're using it just, oh, I accidentally went to a party and some guy knocked me out because I'm a stupid bitch. I slept with some dude I shouldn't have, and he didn't pull out. That's your fault. And you should have that kid, and your life should suck because you're a terrible mother and you're a terrible person. You should keep your fucking legs closed. Um, yeah, that's a whole different ball game. So yeah, but yeah, just shit like that, and I'm gonna say my mind, and it's too fucking bad. That's what I'm saying. So, but if you want to sponsor me, because there is greatness in my mind. You know what I'm saying? As far as whatever goes, there's greatness in my mind. So if you want to just give me money to help me, better the world and better the explanations of things and the things that things do and things of things and stuff, then sure. But yeah, anyways, I'm out. So people be happy, be safe. I love you, and peace.